Welcome to
House of Whimsical Terror.
I'm Esther,
I'm Mary.
and we're coming to you today from Tucson, Arizona.
And we're telling real stories of the fantastical.
All of our stories are true or told to us as true.
Occasionally we alter names to protect privacy.
And we do the same for some of the places.
Yeah.
And today we have a treat. We have our coworker Amy with us, and Amy has worked at both the middle school and the high school. I have some stories about the middle school, but she also, I think, Amy, you have a story about the two-story building that I visited, but it was never part of the school when I was there. Do you want to start with that?
Well, there was always just sort of one of this a myth, whatever people would talk about it. And we had this one woman. She was one of the student success folks. She was looking at the camera, and she noticed a shadow on the camera, and then started, talking about it. And people would be like, "Oh yeah, the elevator. There's always noise in the elevator, so don't go in the elevator when you're the only one in the building."
Give me this
And so that was always don't go in the elevator if you're in there alone. So, and the cleaning crew, she used to always get a little bit freaked out because she would have to take the buckets and stuff when she would be by herself. But yeah, no, and some folks are like, "Oh, it's a bug," and it was a shadow that cut across the downstairs room.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not a bug.
Yeah, but yes, you were told not to go in the elevator if you were in the building alone.
Wow.
And then you would hear things in the one of the closets downstairs. You would hear sort of things was the electrical closet, but you'd be the only person in the building, and you'd be by yourself, and you'd be waiting for students to show up on a Saturday, and there's nothing, or, whatever, and then all of a sudden you would hear things turn on, and you'd be like, "Is somebody in that closet?"
Wow. And it's a specific closet.
It was the downstairs closet as you walk in the door to the left.
Oh, okay.
Was it building an older building, or
no? It was built. They built
okay.
that building. So the original building was
a very old part of town.
Yes,
it's actually located near the Court Street Cemetery,
which strangely keeps coming up for us.
Yeah, in stories that
Mary did a whole Midnight Circle about the Court Street Cemetery, but since then, it seems like things keep circling back there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was the largest cemetery in downtown at the 1890 to the early 1900s, and that area is all
Yeah, no, I know. I live not far from this.
Oh, okay.
From the school,
okay.
So all of the places that I live in were built in the 1890s to 1910.
There you go. So yeah.
And we're not going to edit out that strange go-kart sound.
No, we're not.
That's the sound of Tucson.
It is. It really is. That is the sound of Tucson.
Yes, and we're on a neighborhood street, so that was bizarre. So
that was always sort of don't go in the elevator. And so I never did.
That is eerie.
And I never went to the other side of the building either, too. So it was always just.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
The building where I met you was the middle school building, which is across the parking lot from the building you were just talking about. And there are some very strange things that happen in there. We often talk about this back hallway that had just a feeling in it. And there was a teacher who never wanted to
go back there.
Yes.
Yes. And would say that when they would use the restroom back there, the female restroom back there, the doors would open and close.
Oh, I don't have any doubt about that.
And she would look down to make sure there was somebody in there. So
wow.
But I remember you one day making a comment about noise on the roof.
Yes.
And I can remember when I first moved over to that building, about 4:00 in the afternoon, and almost every day, you would hear pitter patter and kids laughing and whatever, and it would be where are those kids at? And then you came to me and
we came running out. I'm like, there are kids on the roof.
There's kids on the roof.
Because the roof was very high. It wasn't a roof that kids could easily get up. There was no way to scale it.
No.
The building. And so I thought there was a way inside to get up there, and kids had somehow found their way, as kids do, to some kind of place where a staircase or something. And that's when and I think there were a couple other teachers with you, and you all said, "Oh, there's no way to get on the roof." I'm like, no.
But that noise would always happen around the same time every day. Like if you were sitting, like, grading day or whatever, we're all working kind of quietly in our rooms, I would always be like, you would hear it, and you would,
It's like kids playing on the roof.
Sounded like kids playing on the roof, laughing and running around, like legit.
Wow.
Yeah. And that building used to be a grocery store, so I guess there was the ceiling, right? But then there was such a huge attic space too, so there was quite a lot of space up there.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, and I remember not being like, I was like, oh yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
The way you told me, and everybody else just kind of nodding like it's no big deal. Just like, no, there's no way to get up there. There's no kids up there.
Right.
Like, but I heard the kids.
But it was like, yeah.
I was worried they would kill themselves, like running around on the roof. And they're like, nope, there's no way to get up there.
Wow.
And no kids like out in the parking lot or anything, because, when I first experienced it, I would look out. Oh, they must be on the basketball court. And like, Mom, no, there's no basketball. And there was none on the street because there was nothing on the street. There was a sidewalk and residence, and a business. So, but so there was that kind of pitter patter. And then you had said one time kids had run down the hallway.
Oh, yeah.
You were like,
I used to run this after school program because the middle school kids got out an hour before the high school kids. So I would just, in this computer room that was in the back, we would do arts and crafts, or we would, just do things. And I was always really careful with them because teachers were trying to get their work done. So I was very conscious of, I don't want the kids that my made up after school wasn't a real after school program. It was just me going, let's all be here. And so I was always nervous about them all being where they should be and not interrupting. So this one day I had my back to the hallway. Good heavens, this is a noisy street today. We're at my house, and it's not usually this noisy.
I don't know. It's a thing today.
Yes. So it's probably Darren from up the street.
I think it's like a motorized bicycle or something.
Yeah, it does sound like that. So I had the kids inside, my back partway in the doorway, my back to the hallway. And I hear this kid, it sounded like, kind of a stocky kid, just barreling down the hallway behind me and continuing down the rest of the hallway, kind of to my right. And I got up and I was like ready to just like, why are you running inside? And what are you doing out there? You're supposed to be in here, the whole thing. And I get up and I turn around and look, and the door to the hallway to the left of me is shut.
To the left of you?
Where the folks, remember there was that one hallway where it wasn't part of the school, it was part of the program that works with the school.
Right, where the books in the library. That door was shut?
That door was shut. So here's the computer room, and then that door was shut. And I didn't hear
the lights were off?
Stop and go through. Well, I went anyway. I walked through and I told the kids I'll be right back. I'm going to see. And they heard it. Like they would hear it all the time. So I went back, and there was a employee with that program that I was particularly friendly with. And I went back and I said, hey, was one of my kids running through here? And they're like, no, you're the only one who's been through here. Okay. So I closed the door again. But they would have had to stop, open the door, go through, close it. I heard the kid continuously running. And after that, just about every day, I'm not exaggerating, not only me, but the students who were, the middle school students who were part of that after school hour, we would hear kids running down that
creepy hallway.
And
it was a creepy hallway.
I'll admit, I've been with the organization for over a decade, and I never went in at the back, very far back there, where I never went back there. I think maybe once or twice.
Well, it was like a long, very narrow. It had doors that usually were closed, no windows.
No windows, very dark.
It was like you were walking into the bowels of this old, large unknown space. It was really unusual.
And without the windows, that was another reason you couldn't scale up the side of that building.
No,
it was just
not at all.
straight
No,
walls.
it was straight walls.
And that bathroom that you were just talking about, Amy, it was like at night when I was there late, because I get more work done when the dark hits. I'm a night owl completely. I was terrified. I terrified. And I did hear things. I thought there were people, still in the building. I thought, oh, somebody else is working late. And I would go into that woman's bathroom, and man, there were times where I'm like, I'm going to use the kids' bathroom. None of the kids were there. Mm-hmm. So it was
I find it fascinating also that in this particular building that everyone that worked there had some experiences with. They had similar experiences, like kids on the roof, something down the hallway, the scary bathroom. I mean, that really says something about the way that energy was held in that building in such a way that it would be like a repetitive experience, something that kept replaying, and multiple people reporting the same experience. I mean, that's really quite remarkable.
Well, they're
not necessarily talking with each other about it.
Oh, not talking with each other about it until sort of after experiencing it, and then realizing, oh, maybe this person won't think I'm crazy if I say this, and then the person's like, yeah. I mean, so there's instances of there's an office where people would report hearing voices behind them. They would always look back, like thinking there was somebody behind them or whatever. And one person who never met the second person had the same exact experience.
Right.
And then we have another colleague that would come over, and that same office, and then another office, which was created. That was actually because the building was a bit of a shell. Would come over and be so uncomfortable. Would be like, I have to go. Would be very uncomfortable speaking to the people. The principal was in one office and the counselor was in the other. And say, oh, I'm uncomfortable. And then the person who, the counselor in there who had heard the voices, had never met the previous counselor who had said the same thing, ended up sort of saging it. And we learned that the building had a two-way mirror, and there were some things that were being,
like a therapeutic observation.
Yeah, so things were happening, and people were talking, and there was some energy there. So
definitely,
so definitely, but it's super different than the across the street, because I felt like in the middle school you couldn't be like, please don't scare me or whatever. You just were like, okay,
yeah.
All right, I got to get out of here.
right.
Yeah, I got to go. I just got to go.
There were so many times for a while I would sit at the front desk and just kind of, when people would come in or when students were checking out. And there were hours at a time where I was alone in that office. And countless times, there'd be nothing. And suddenly across the office, so there was a desk, kind of a partial wall, I think, or a desk, but there was definitely something that separated me from where the sink and the paper towels were.
Yeah, there was like a
paper
barrier.
Towels would just go, like, I didn't move differently. I was on my computer facing the same direction, hadn't gotten up, and the paper towels would just, like it was trying to get my attention.
Because you have to wave your hand in front of them.
And they don't always work anyway when you do wave your hand.
It's true.
So
it's true. But there was nothing in front of it, like nothing that would wave with the air conditioning, nothing. There was nothing in front of where the paper towel and the sink were. And that horrible smell that would come out of that
sink.
Yeah. Just strange.
That building was definitely.
And also I think it's significant that these stories it wasn't like, oh, this was a point in time in this building. This is the same experience, the same experiences happening with different people over the course of years.
Yes, over the course of years. Yes.
And we used to sit out at lunchtime. We would sit with the kids on those
picnic tables.
Picnic tables. I mean, they could sit inside, but most kids wanted to be outside. So I would go and sit on the picnic tables with them. And that was kind of a daily occurrence. Like I can see it in my mind, just sitting out there. But I had left before this happened. But do you all want to tell the story about what happened with the cover over the porch when the building
change was coming?
So the building, and I mean, the building was struggling. I just want to say the last year or two that we were in there was a great old building, and it served a great purpose, but it was definitely needing some help. Mm-hmm. And so starting to get a little smelly. It was weird. And then we got the order to move across the street, so we did. And then one half of the building still kept some offices and some folks stayed in, but the school moved out and we moved across the street.
Right.
And the kids are out on the back patio and we're playing around, and there's people are coming and going. There's stuff going on, And then school ended and we had the long weekend, and then we came to work the next day, and the principal or the superintendent walked over, and the entire porch had fallen.
Yeah, the underside.
The underside of the porch had almost it had flipped in the air.
Yeah,
the way it had. It wasn't just a straight drop. It had obviously swung, and it was like, oh,
how does that even?
And it was huge,
and it was heavy, thick and heavy, and 2 days prior, someone would have died.
All of us sitting under there would have been crushed, but it waited, and it's almost like it was protesting that the kids were moving out.
Being moved.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing and being like, wow, I think the building is tearing itself down.
I kind of agree with you because
stories.
Because it was really having a rough go. I mean, I know it's kind of anthropomorphizing of the building, but it just, there was things that were breaking, and it was just just getting tired.
Yeah. It was right.
And then when they did tear it down, it was just it was amazing to watch them tear it down, because it was this amazing, demolition thing, but it smelled awful. It just smelled
which is interesting, because
I hate to say, but it just kind of smelled like death. You were just like, oh my God.
Which is interesting. People who've seen or experienced certain supernatural, kind of evil, say that they have that sulfur smell or that.
Yeah, it was just, and I can remember, I was still working in my office. I was working on a grant, and everybody's moving, right? And I'm taking breaks from my grant, loading up books from my room, and I'd go back and sit down, and I would just be like, what is that smell? Wow. What is going on?
It was mad.
And
it was mad.
And as a teacher, I would always spray lots of perfume on my shirts, and I would, and turtlenecks, whatever. And I can remember having lotion and just putting it underneath my nose to try and get done, But yeah, I mean, it wasn't scary, but it was definitely oh.
Yeah. And then now we work together at the high school, which is across the street from this building, and
which is an old building too, where my office is. Maybe
the front half of that building is a really old adobe,
an old adobe house, and I don't.
Do you think?
The kitchen to me looked.
I can't recall
40s.
This. Yeah, I think it was 40-ish, 1940s.
But there's lots of buildings around it that are from the turn of the century. So I mean, I think there's still a lot.
It could be older, and then a newer
older,
kitchen.
And sort of on top of that, right?
Yeah,
and then there's the extension of that it's newer construction, but the office, your office is in the old.
I'm in the old space,
and it was there was a house.
It was a house. Yeah, there's a fireplace in there. There was a kitchen. Yeah. We all try to figure out what it looked like, because you'd be like, there must have been a wall right here, or this was knocked down, or this is really weird. What is this doing here?
Yeah.
And so that's always kind of fun, to check that out. But yeah, there's a man there. His name's Jack. And when I moved, did I teach? I didn't teach in the.
And just so our listeners know, there's the building
across the street. It's right across the street
from the building.
In this old part of town, close to the
old
Street
neighborhood,
Cemetery.
super old neighborhood. You know, Drockman's an old street,
Very.
And Arizona Ave is not far away, and that's the very first street in Tucson.
I did not know that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and I mean, and where I live, there's some great stories there. Where I live on part of the building because I rent an apartment. Is on Arizona Ave, and one of the 2-story apartments is the old Pony Express office.
Oh wow!
And the house across the street from where I live was was like a sheriff of the territory. Built in 1880, so there's some really great. So so
you probably have some stories about that.
But just the old neighborhood, you know.
So we want you to come back and tell those stories if you don't mind.
No, that'd be great. I can talk to people. You know, there's lots of stories. A lot of people talk stories. But so there's Jack, and the person who knew him, who got to know him, she was a counselor, and she seems very keen on all of that. Mm-hmm. And she said that, you know, he was just kind of ornery. Okay. You know, he always mess with her, like he'd, you know, throw papers on the floor.
So she was sensitive to his presence.
Yes, very sensitive to his presence. And we would hear stories about it, and we'd be like, okay, whatever. And then the superintendent moved back to back in an office in the old part of the building, and he could never get his computer to work. There were always sort of issues with the electricity. And, you know, some people are like, oh, it's old. But, I mean, it was continual. It was like all the time. The big one is he would do these Google presentations, right? And he would get them ready for meetings with, you know, leadership. And he would run through and everything would be great. And then he'd go to his meeting and it would never work.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, they would never work. And he would get so frustrated. It was like, and they're like, hello, Jack doesn't like men. And that's what this person would say. And then he would move. He moved to a different space back there. Same thing would happen. There was just issues with his computer all the time. Issues all the time. And the door would shut. Like, he would be sitting at his desk and the air wouldn't come on and heat wouldn't come on. And his door would be propped open pretty wide. And it's a heavy door. And it would just shut.
Oh, my gosh.
That's when I'd be like, oh, I got to go.
So when I got my new position and I moved to an office in the back, so I had like kind of jumped around offices, and then I finally got this great space in the back, right? And I was back there working, and it was a big project. I was learning my job. I was learning on my job as I go. And I just kept thinking something was behind me. I kept thinking, like, what is behind me? What is behind me? And so I said something about it. I was like, I swear, you know, something's behind me. I'm just trying to do my job, you know. And I told this person, and she's like, oh, no, his name's Jack, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I would just say to him, like, Jack, I'm just trying to learn my job. Please don't scare me. Please don't scare me. And he was nice. He never scared me, whatever, you know, it was fine. And then last semester, I think it was last semester, it's a Friday about 8:15, and my colleague calls me and goes, oh my God, I think I met Jack and people, I don't know, something was behind over by in, you know, this other person's office. I heard people talking. And I said, are you sure? I said, are you sure it wasn't like people in that courtyard area? Like maybe folks that's kind of like, no, I looked out there, whatever. All the, you know, the hair on my arms, you know, like I got goosebumps, whatever. Just, she's like, I had to get out of there. But I heard voices and I called out, and then I heard nothing. And I was like, really? You called out? I called out and said, hey, such and such, are you here? And then no noise. I was like, so she left. She was like, I'm leaving right now. She left. Like, she grabbed her stuff and left, shut down and left. So, you know, Jack's around. I saw him. He was around at Christmas. I was cleaning my office. No one was around. I had come in, and my printer was broken, right? Like, it wasn't broken, but I'm really bad about replacing the toner consistently because I'm afraid I'm going to break it. So I always wait for someone else to come and do it for me.
Yeah.
So if they break it, then I don't get in trouble. Like, what are you doing?
I get that.
I don't understand. Did you read the directions? Whatever. So, but I was in the corner cleaning, you know, dusting, whatever, and my printer came on. I hadn't logged on to my computer. I hadn't done anything.
Wow.
I was just picking up and cleaning, and I was like, Jack, come on. I'm just trying to clean. I'm here alone. Cut me a break. So, yeah. You know.
So he wants to interact with people.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And I think if we asked other folks, they would probably have more stories.
Undoubtedly.
You know.
My classroom in that building, not in the old part that you're talking about, but the newer part, which is still kind of old, yes. I cannot, and you all who know me well know that I like the dark. I prefer it. I don't like bright light at all.
We'd be sitting in the dark right now if you had your way.
Yes.
It would be a candlelight only experience.
Yeah.
I cannot walk into that classroom with the lights out if there's no one in there with me. I mean,
and you have a window.
And I have a window, but there's a part in the corner that's extra dark, which is weird. Like it's almost too dark for there to be windows with light coming through. It's almost too dark. It's very strange.
Wow.
And I can't, I can't tell you how many times I've walked out with my purse and everything else and forgotten my keys and had to go back in. I will get partway into the classroom, and to the right back of the classroom, there's just something there. I have to go back, turn on the lights, then go in, and because whatever it is, it's very palpable in the dark, but not in the light. It's very strange. But I said one day, because kids like to hear ghost stories, so every once in a while someone will say, oh, I have this really great story, and so we'll, we're not allowed to turn the lights off, but we'll get them as dim as we're allowed to. And the custodian was coming in to ask me about my cooling and heating, because it's weird. They'll fix the air conditioning, and it's usually set to about 75-ish, and suddenly it's up to 91.
Whoa, that's insane. That's crazy.
I think that's
it's locked.
It's gotten. Wow. You can feel hot air coming in. And so someone came in and fixed it like really well. But even now, it's been cold in Tucson, which is rare, but it's been cold, and you feel cold air. And so I was telling custodian, I said, I can feel cold air. The kids can feel it. And the heater's on. And I said, it could just be a ghost. He goes, oh, well, yeah. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, oh, there's a ghost here. This place is haunted. But he was dead serious. He was not like...
So I have never spoken to him about that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to. Because his office is right next to mine.
Oh, yeah.
And his other office was in between the superintendent's office and mine. Okay. And then he moved to the back area where that bike shop is. Oh, I'm totally going to ask him.
Yes. Yeah. And he told me, I said, would you come in and tell the story? He goes, no, I will tell you the story and you can tell it to the kids, but I won't tell it. He said, I'll tell it to you, but I'm not going to tell it to them. Yeah. So I haven't followed up.
You haven't followed? Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Then you guys
That's so
follow
crazy
up.
Because
let me know.
When I feel like someone's behind me, that's the other office is where he.
Oh, it's his office.
It's his office behind me.
Oh my!
When he was dead serious.
Wow. So I wonder what.
That's great.
Yeah. There is a ghost here, because I was kind of saying it like offhand, like, oh, it's probably a ghost. We're out to tell ghost stories, and the cold air. He goes, oh.
Wow.
Yeah. So it'll be fun to hear.
That's really interesting.
You'll have to report back, because I would like you to come back and tell those other stories about, all the other things too.
And I've never spoken. There's a teacher who's upstairs late. I should ask her. Yeah, and she's there late in the day.
Yeah, and these again, like you were saying. I mean, the location of both the previous building across the street and this building. And then this building being it was an old house that, got built into this, more modernized school situation. But the land, I always say, the land holds the stories. And that land for sure does.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been so close to that cemetery.
I don't feel like it's as sinister, though.
No.
I think the one that we're dealing with now, like you say, just wants to interact and...
you said before, I think you used the word ornery.
Yeah, toss papers on the floor.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, but he's nice when you tell him,
Yeah.
Yeah, please don't scare me. That's all I say.
Yeah, so that's
Please don't scare me.
really cool. Yeah, across the street, the other building, that one had a very sinister feel. I recall walking down that hallway.
The back hallway.
feeling
That's the whole back space in general back there.
Super creepy
Kind of like,
area.
what's going on back
that
there?
bathroom in the back. And all of it. Yeah, it was pretty terrifying.
I definitely prefer your current haunted office versus the old haunted office.
Yes, my new office has like
haunted.
Nice windows.
Yeah.
So.
And your office, your classroom has some cold spots, so
and hot spots. Yeah, it's just really odd. So hopefully they can get it
or not. Dun dun dun. We'll find out. And you've had some interesting. Well, and you've had a lot of places. You've worked a lot of places besides just at the schools. Done some very interesting work.
Ghana.
I did work in Ghana,
and we were telling you that we have a lot of listeners.
That's great. That's a shout out to Kumasi or Accra or up north. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
so a wonderful time. I spent a month in Ghana. I was by myself. I was doing work.
Wow,
people were very kind. It was great. Yeah, and I was able to interview people, and they were very, very receptive.
That is so great. Yeah. It's kind of full circle.
Yeah, so we want to do a shout out to our Ghanaians.
That's right.
Ghanaians, yes.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. And Amy, thank you for joining us for these stories.
And we'll have more. We're having Amy back.
Yes, we are.
Twisted her arm.
Yes,
she said she will come back and tell us more about another topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us, everybody, and come back and listen to some more stories and share them with people. And for now, so long, good friends. Until next time, when we meet back at the house.